Okay, in this video, what I suggest is take a moment and pause your video and copy down as much of this as you can. So take a few moments, copy this into your notebook, pause the video, and I'll be back in just a second to do the example. Okay, so now I'm back and we're looking at some shapes. We've got 3 different lines here, and they're all sort of intersecting each other in crazy ways. Notice we're labeling a bunch of different things here. And the whole purpose of this example is to just go through and see if you understand the definition of a point, of a segment, of a ray, of a line, collinear, and then at the bottom it's named 3 coplanar points. Okay, so if we wanted to name 3 points, basically any letter on there that you see other than M and N are lowercase letters. In this example, the lowercase letters usually denote a line. They notice they didn't label this line here, but they did label these 2 lines with lowercase letters. So the lowercase letters are typically for labeling lines, if you'll see that in your textbook and on some worksheets. But basically any uppercase letter you see represents a point. But the obvious ones that stick out are A, B, and D. But remember, any 2 lines intersect exactly in 1 point. So this point G is a point, this C is a point, and this F is a point. So you can name any 3. I'll put them all down. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Any 3 of those points would satisfy the answer to this question. Basically, these are places where they intersect and they create a point, remembering that postulate from the previous video. Now the next one, they want you to name 3 line segments. If you look on here, there are several line segments. If you look at this line, we have line segment BC, we have line segment CF, we have FD, we can do CD. Any of those things will work. So I like to make myself simple. The ones that stick out the best, you could say line BC, you could say line segment EC, or you could say line segment CG. There are so many different segments on here that it would be impossible for me to list it on these papers. But notice you have BC that could be a segment, you have CF that could be a segment, FD could be a segment, GF, CG, CD, BD, they're infinite. So any place that ends on 2 points can create a segment. Okay. Number 3 is very similar as well. It says name 2 rays, and there are several rays on this paper. Basically, if you look at any arrow pointing in one direction, you go back to a terminating point, you can call that a ray. So here, up here, notice if you look at this top part, starting with G and going in that direction, you could say ray G. Or another way, and that's not very neat, but that's ray G. Another way you could write a ray is with 2 letters. So if I wanted to denote this part here going in this direction, I could say start with G, and I could call it ray G, and then whatever point is in that direction, ray GA. So there's a couple of different ways you can write that. Notice if you've got 1 point and there's no other point labeled, you can just call it ray G, just 1 letter. But if you're going in the direction where there's another letter, you should probably put that other letter under there. So there's a couple of examples, but there's more up here. You can say ray D, you could say ray FD, you could say ray CD, or ray BD. You can start all the way back here, terminate at that point, and go on in that point forever. And you can do it on any of those lines. So any of those points that you pick out of there, any of those rays. So there's many different examples, many different places where you can find a ray there. This says name 2 lines. The only 2 lines they really have labeled are M and N. So you can say line M and line N. But there is another line here. If you wanted to label that, you could call this line GF if you wanted to. This convention would be if they don't put a lowercase letter there, the way you could call that line is pick 2 points inside of that line and call it a line GF, or you can call it line FG, however you want to do that. Okay, so basically any two letters, any 2 points that lay on that line, you can use them to label your line as long as you put the line symbol above it. Okay, so those are some examples of what you can label a line. Number 5 says name 3 collinear points. Remember that collinear means any points that lie on the same line. So if we look at this line, any collinear points would be B, C, F, and D. If we look at the other line here, it could be E, C, G, or A. Or on this other line, 2 collinear points would be G and F, and that's the only 2 that are collinear on that line. So any 3 of those points would work. I'll just pick the first line. You can say B, C, F. All right? B, C, F, those 3 points lie on the same line. But you can pick any of those ones that I showed you before. And then finally, any 3 coplanar points. So coplanar, remember, it means lying on the same plane. Notice this whole symbol is lying on the plane of the paper. So any point that you can pick off of there is going to work. So you can just say A, B, C. But any of those points that are up there will work for that example. So there's an example of some things that to help you get started on the worksheet. If you have any questions, post them in the comments or bring them to me in class. Thank you.